Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Julie, or Egg Mama, and it has been a long time since I last filmed a video, so I'm really sorry about that if you have been waiting for this. I don't think many people really are, but if you are, here it is. This has been really fun to do, and I want to just make sure that I am making videos when it's fun for me, and not ever turning it into something that I don't want to do. So that's why there's been a pause. Also, life has just been happening, so that is hopefully behind me and I can get back into the rhythm of doing this every month. But yeah, summer reading time is here, and I love summer reading. It's very exciting, it's a fun time, and I think that as the year has progressed, my reading has gotten better in terms of I'm finding more books that I really like, which is always a plus. So I want to share those with you, and that's what I'll be doing today, talking about my favorite books I read in June. Yeah, I hope that since I last posted a video, you have been well and healthy, and the weather has been nice, and you also are ready for summer reading and have had some good reads that you've read already. So let us just get started then. And I only have 8 books, so not too many, like a good manageable number, so let's just jump in. The first book I read this month is I Hear the Sunspot, Volume 2 by Yuki Fumino. This is a manga that follows 2 college students. One is named Kohda, he has a hearing impairment, and the other is Taichi, who is a really loud and boisterous personality, and Kohei is able to hear his voice much more clearly because of the way he speaks. Because this is volume 2, it goes more into depth of their relationship and how their friendship and romantic relationship together is kind of growing and kind of expanding. And I like this one more than the first volume actually, because we already have that foundation, so it's starting to go more into deeper themes of things like what do you want to do with your life and how do you know if you're making the right decision there, which I think is always super relevant and just relatable. So I rated this one 3 stars. I did like it, and there were some more new side characters who were introduced who were really fun. So I wasn't planning to keep reading this one, but now that I've read the second volume, I think that I will, because it just made me more attached to the characters and the story in general. Next up, I read Love and Other Thought Experiments by Sophie Ward. This was longlisted for the Man Booker Award a few years ago. It's been a while, but it was on my radar because of that, and I finally got around to reading it. And I was really interested in this one because it sounds like everything that I would enjoy. People are banging on the stairs. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm sorry. Okay, I don't know what people are up to this morning. But Love and Other Thought Experiments, I was very interested in this one because it seemed like a melding of philosophy and literature, and that just is really exciting to me. So I was like, yes, I'm ready to read this. I'm excited for it. And I didn't dislike it, but the timing, I think, was a little bit off from when I was reading it. So this story basically follows a couple, Rachel and Eliza. Rachel is a little bit more esoteric, she just kind of goes with the flow, whereas Eliza is a scientist. She is really logical and rational. And they're living together in this house, and they're thinking about having a child together. And one night, though, they're getting ready for bed, and then Eliza wakes up because Rachel is sitting on the end of the bed, and she's like, an ant has crawled into my eye. And Eliza's like, okay, it was just a nightmare, you're fine, go back to sleep. Rachel's like, no, an ant crawled into my eye, I can feel it in there. Sorry if you don't like bugs, by the way, but just know that maybe don't read this if you don't like ants or bugs. And so that forms a point of tension for them throughout their relationship and the story as a whole, which is Rachel believes that an ant is in her eye and has formed a relationship with it, and Eliza thinks that is not possible. And so this calls into question their whole relationship and even the nature of how they are having these experiences. the book is formatted like different thought experiments. So each chapter is starting with a famous thought experiment with a little description of it, so you don't have to do outside research, which I appreciated. And then the chapter begins and it follows Rachel and Eliza. It also follows the surrogate father of the child that they do end up having together, named Arthur. It follows Arthur when he is a child and when he is grown up, and it really goes like some very interesting places to have these thought experiments and think about like what could have happened, or why is this happening the way that it is, how did we get here, why are we experiencing the things that we are. And on paper it sounds really interesting, and I think I would have liked it more if I had not been playing a video game at the same time that was doing something really similar, but in a way that just works a lot better. So the video game is called 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, and it is basically an amalgamation of like super famous and like relevant in the minds of like pop culture sci-fi tropes. So think about like The Matrix, E.T., War of the Worlds, and it's blending all these together in a way that really makes sense for it. And because it's a video game format, it just works really well for what the game is doing, and the way that like stories and narratives and dimensions and worlds are like all layered in with each other. And because I was playing that concurrently while reading Love and Other Thought Experiments, the whole time I was just drawing these parallels between the two, and I was like, 13 Sentinels did this so much better and in a less pretentious way. So personally, the book did let me down a little bit, but I think that if I hadn't played the game, then it would have been more striking to me. So I rated the book 3 stars, I think, and my final verdict would be, if that sounds interesting to you, like the questions of what is humanity and what is reality, and like what, not even like reality in terms of what we're experiencing, but what we feel. If that sounds interesting to you, but you don't want to read about it, then I would suggest playing 13 Sentinels. It was a great time, and every time I ended a chapter of that, like my jaw would literally drop because something would happen and be like, no, like it's just insane, but really good. Although there are some caveats with it, it's not a perfect game by any means, but if that whole like theme sounds interesting to you, then definitely pick it up. And if you want the literary experience, then Love and Other Thought Experiments was good too, but it is just a little bit heavier and you have to use your brain more, which maybe I just wasn't feeling at the time either. The next book I read is a poetry collection called Kingdom Animalia by Aracelis Girmay. And apologies, I know I'm not getting the pronunciation exactly correct on that, but this collection was sent to me by my dear friend Navia, and they really recommended it, so I, obviously like moved that up to the top of my list, and it's just a really lovely collection of poems. Most of the times whenever I am really drawn to a collection of poetry, they tend to be really emotionally fraught, and they have like this really kind of thick tension and almost desperation underneath them, and I'm drawn to that because of those intense emotions, but also reading them is hard sometimes because of that. And this collection is doing so many beautiful things, and it's able to do that without having that like really fraught emotional undercurrent. Like the poems are definitely emotional and they're beautiful, but they aren't all about like desperation and negative feelings. I actually feel like the poetry collection is really kind, and it's always moving towards like positivity, and not in a like Pinterest or like Disney like gross kind of way, but in a way that is like very grounded in reality and kind of just like acknowledging the things that happen in these experiences, and ultimately just like celebrating life and like kindness as well. And I haven't read a poetry collection like that before, and yeah, when I closed it, I was just like, that was really kind, and I love that, and I think that, we could use more of that too. So it was an excellent collection. If you're looking to get into poetry, I think that this is also a really accessible collection too. I will read you a very small poem from it because it's just very cute. And like, obviously I have a lot of sticky tabs in here if you can see, because there are so many poems and lines where I was just like, this is so good. So I'll read the last poem in the collection because it's very short. It's called Ars Poetica, and it says, "May the poems be the little snail's trail. Everywhere I go, every inch, quiet record of the foot's silver prayer. I lived once. Thank you. It was here." And that's just so tender and beautiful, and zooming in on this small moment, and like with gratitude and acknowledgement, and just excellent, an excellent read. Yeah, thank you Navia for sharing it with me, and I would just highly recommend everyone to pick this up. Like I said before, I think I don't typically rate poetry collections, but 5 stars. The next book I read is Woman Eating by Kohda. So this book follows a young woman named Lydia who is perpetually hungry. The only problem is that she can't eat human food. She is actually half vampire, so her only source of sustenance is blood. It doesn't have to be human blood, but it has to be blood, and human blood of course tastes the best. So Lydia is on her own for the time being. Her mother is the one who turned her into a vampire. She is in a nursing home right now, actually. And Lydia is on her own for the first time. She is a young aspiring artist. She has her own little artist studio that she's renting out and secretly sleeping in because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. So she has this artist space, she has an internship at a local museum, and she has some seeds of friendship that are beginning to blossom. But without this source of sustenance that she needs in order to survive, Lydia's finding it harder and harder to navigate the human world without her mother, and also just understanding the ways in which people work and how she fits into that as well. So as all of this is kind of building up and she's trying to figure out what's going on and how she's going to live her life, she still is always hungry, and she has to decide if she will continue to resist that hunger or if she will give into it. So I enjoyed this book. Basically anything with vampires and like artists I'm going to be interested in, and I really like that the way the author used vampirism to explore mixed race heritage and identity, because Lydia is half human and half vampire, and also she is mixed race. Her mother is of Malaysian descent and her father is Japanese, so she is constantly getting questions of like, what are you? And she's her immediate thought is kind of like, oh my god, I'm a vampire, like yikes, I can't say that. But also having this extra layer of knowledge, which is that like, oh, like people also are just asking that of like other humans, and it's super rude and inconsiderate. But I like the way that she's using that to kind of talk about the more realistic themes of growing up and looking a certain way that people can't automatically like slot you into little boxes. Also just the connection of like needing blood and like blood ties and like that connection to family and sustenance, and how like Lydia is always searching for something and like the thing to like give her nourishment, and she can't find it, or she feels like she is unworthy of it. There's a lot packed into this book. It's pretty small, but I really like the way that that was all explored. It's definitely in context, like talking with books like My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atessa Moshfegh, and The New Me by, I want to say Haley something, I don't remember, so I'll put it up here when I'm editing, of kind of like the messy millennial woman who's like out on her own for the first time, and like just like gross, and like not even gross, like a realistic woman, but a depiction of them in a way that is not like airbrushed and beautiful that we see in most media types, which I actually really like. But whenever I was reading My Year of Rest and Relaxation and The New Me, they did feel pretty shallow. And what I liked about Woman Eating is that like messy woman, sad girl kind of exploration makes a lot more sense in context of like Lydia's identity and her search for self. So it just worked better. Ultimately though, I did feel a little meh at the ending. I enjoyed the read, but it wasn't super memorable, so 3 stars is what I'm going with for this one. Okay, next up is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This is a novel that was inspired by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, so when I saw that I was like, yes please. So I really liked Frankenstein and I was very excited about this. It is set in 2 timelines, 1978 and 2019. In 1978 we follow a small group of siblings. We start off with Vi, Violet, and Eric, her younger brother. Their parents were killed in a car crash, so they live with their grandmother, who happens to also be a really widely renowned scientist and psychologist. She works at a sort of treatment and care center in Vermont and employs some unconventional methods to help those staying at the center. But she's really famous and really highly regarded, and Eric and Violet grow up with her and she takes care of them, she homeschools them, and they're very smart children. One day, grandmother brings home a young girl named Iris who like has this cap over her head and she doesn't say a word. She's very like skittish, but through, you know, friendship and like just being kids, Eric, Violet, and Iris begin to be really close, and Violet and Eric ask Iris to join their monster hunting club, which they have a little book that they made, and their goal is to kind of rid the world of monsters because monsters are right among us. It quickly becomes apparent though that things at the treatment care center aren't all that they appear, and the 3 siblings begin to unravel things that they quickly begin to wish that they had stayed out of. In 2019, which is like supposed to be more of the present day, we follow this woman named Lizzie Shelley, who has a famous podcast known as Monsters Among Us, where she goes around the country and interviews people who have seen, you know, monsters, local legends, tries to get to the bottom of things. And there is a girl who goes missing, and there are some clues that point to the monster behind it all being her very own sister. So there are these 2 timelines, and they inform each other and talk to each other and really just unravel the past of everything that went on in 1978 and how that has led up to this present moment. There is a twist in the last 20 or so pages of the book that is really well done. The author just does a really good job setting it up throughout the book so that when it happens you still feel surprised, but you also feel a little gratified, like, oh, like I could kind of see like those clues as I was reading it, so like I knew that was gonna happen, but you're still surprised. And I think that's really rare to have a twist that is big, doesn't feel super sudden or abrupt or just random, and also kind of gives you that feeling of like being a puzzle solver yourself. So I thought that was really well done and I enjoyed it. Was the book itself super memorable? Will I remember it at the end of the year? Probably not that much. So 3 stars it is. It was enjoyable, but not the most riveting one for me, or at least the most memorable. The next book I read is one that I was kind of nervous to read because it is one that is really hyped on like Book Talk and social media, and that is The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. So this book is set in a world where magic exists and those who can wield it are known as Medians. Every 10 years, the 6 most powerful Medians in the world are invited to join the secret society known as the Alexandrian Society. They are the keepers of the world's lost knowledge, basically, and everyone who joins the society is basically super powerful, successful, rich, famous, whatever they want, they can have it. This year, the ones who are recruited into the society, Livy, Nico, Reina, Parissa, Callum, and Tristan, they are the 6. They are taken to the society asked to join, and they each have their own magical specialty. When they get to the society, though, they are, thrown together. They're used to being the best of the best, and now they're with the other best, and obviously there are some tensions that arise, instant alliances being made, especially when they find out that one of them is not going to make it through the end, one of them is not going to be able to join the society. And as the year progresses, it quickly becomes apparent what that means and what actions they will have to take in order to solidify their spot in the society for each of themselves. This book is kind of in the realm of dark academia, with some magic and a sort of scholastic setting, very loosely. I did end up liking it more than I thought I would, and I think it's because the magic system is pretty compelling for me. I really like the way that the author describes, like, especially the physical affinities that Libby and Nico have, how it's kind of like physics and waves and particles, and you can like break down time too to its like little tiny components and use that to manipulate it at will, and that was just super fun. And like the way that some of the mind affinity people, like Parissa is a telepath, Callum is an empath, which is just hilarious, especially like in context with his character. And I like the way that those are portrayed too. I can see why people don't like this book though, because none of the characters are super likable. They're all rather like either just not great people or they're very annoying, like Olivie. But that's why I liked them, because they felt really realistic, and in the sort of situation that they are in, I don't think many people would be able to like step up and be selfless and self-sacrificing and be a hero. I think that's really aspirational to think of, but in the actual moment is really hard to do. So I just really appreciated that look into the characters and no one being really a quote-unquote hero, with the exception of perhaps like Libby and maybe Nico, but they're all really selfish characters who want what they want and they're not afraid to get it, and I liked that personally. So I rated this 4 stars. It's probably closer to a 3.5, but I did really end up liking it, and I thought it was a standalone, but it's not, so now I have to wait for the sequel. But it was good. Characters aside, it is talking a lot about the power of knowledge and how that is really a force to be reckoned with that we don't like think about a lot in terms of like physical powers or like military power, but like having knowledge is really a strength, and the tagline of the book is "Knowledge is Carnage," which it's just fun. The next book I read is Jade Fire Gold by June Tan. This book is a xianxia, wuxia, like Chinese inspired fantasy YA novel, and it follows these 2 protagonists, An and Altan. An is a young girl who lives on the outskirts of the nation, and there's a pretty big drought that's encroaching on the land. Her town is like right on the border of that, so there's not a lot of water, not enough food to go around, and An doesn't really have a past that she can remember. She was adopted and kind of taken in by this older woman named Ama, and now she doesn't really know who she is or where she came from. In the meantime, there is kind of this war on magic, people who can wield magic who are not supposed to be able to. They are really made the scapegoats for the entire plight of the nation and are hunted down and severely persecuted because of that. No surprise, An has magic that she has to hide. The other protagonist, Altan, is actually of royal descent. He is the son of the former king. His father was murdered and his family had to flee. In the escape, his mother and his sister died, leaving him the sole survivor. He also has magic, but right now he's kind of just studying under a master and trying to formulate this plot to take revenge, take over the throne, push back the drought, kind of restore the land and the people to thrive and just like live in better conditions. The 2 of them meet sort of by happen chance, but also by fate that brings them together, because An and her magic, she is really the key to Altan's entire plan of reclaiming the throne. The only thing is that Ann's magic is a little bit unstable, and it has equal affinity for really dark magic and really light magic, and it is up to her to really decide how she wants to use that. And of course, as Anne and Autumn are traveling together, they begin to look out for each other's backs, and that kind of enemies to lovers trope is in there too, if you like that. I rated this book 4 stars because it was just the perfect summer read for me. I really liked all of the characters. They were super lovable, and just like the characters on and Autumn themselves, but also a lot of the side characters that are there are just really fun, and there's some great representation in terms of queerness too. So if you're looking for that, you have it. It was super quick, the chapters are really short, and I think it's just a good summer read. It is also a standalone, which the ending kind of seems like it's not a standalone, and I was like, is there a sequel? I don't think there is, at least at this time, so you can pick it up and it'll be like a one and done, at least for now. There is no like, I thought there was a cliffhanger, but apparently it's not. So yeah, it's just a standalone and super enjoyable, super quick, and ultimately really fun. The next and last book I read is Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu. This book actually came to me in a weird kind of way because I went to my mailbox one day and there was a package in there, and it was this book, and it didn't have a return label on it, like from a name of someone, and there was like no note inside or anything, and I was like, okay, this is like weird, but it's a free book, so I'll take it. And I think what happened is I entered a Goodreads giveaway and they just never notified me that I won, and it says like in the column of like, did you win the giveaway or not? It said no. So I don't really know, like maybe I have a little book fairy out there, but I think I just got it from Goodreads, so thank you, Goodreads. But yes, Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century. This is a short story collection, and like the name suggests, it is focused a lot on the modern human condition, with advances in technology, like what does it mean to be human, and you know, like just what is our place in the world, like especially now and into the future too. My favorite story is one called 20 Hours, about this couple who buy a fancy machine called a printer. It doesn't print paper, it prints bodies. So you like put something on your skin or like implant something into your skin, and it backs up your entire self, so like your body, your consciousness, your personality, everything. And then if you die a sudden violent death, then you can just be printed on this machine, good as new. And this couple, they kind of are like, what if? And so they take turns killing each other and murdering each other, and then just like print out their partner like on the printer, and they're good to go. And it's just so interesting. Not only is that a crazy and like cool concept, but also it is just like that human impulse of like, oh, what if? And like if those barriers are eliminated and there are no real consequences, like you just like want to do something just to see what happens, right? Which is like why I think a lot of things happen in the world, because people just like want to see what will happen when like even like you know something bad is going to happen or it's not going to be a great outcome. So just super interesting, and I think that like impulse that people have is just so crazy, because I saw this Twitter post that was like, I don't play Elden Ring, but apparently there's like this big like benevolent kind of boss that you shouldn't fight, but like you can, and the whole time like some people decided to fight it even though the boss was like don't fight me, like I don't want to fight you, but they like killed him anyway, and at the end like they didn't even get anything, and it was just like all really futile, and that was really depressing to me. And also just like again that impulse of like, what happened if I did this, and like it's a video game, you know, so like, it's fine, but like what happens when you carry that into the real world? Just super fascinating. So that was definitely my favorite, as well as the first short story. But overall I didn't really love the collection. I think that's partly on me though. I am a bad short story reader. I just usually like want more and find it really hard to kind of like pull back out of a story, and like I want the details, I want like everything that's going on. So yeah, I rated it 2 stars, which kind of feels uncharitable. It's probably closer to like 3 stars, maybe 4 if you like short stories, but it's just a genre that is hard for me, so thus my rating. Okay, that is it for everything I read during the month of June. Thank you so much for joining me and watching this video as always, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!